how to transform moments of confrontation into opportunities for growth. Hello everyone, as many of you already know, my name is Matthew Lastalia, and today I wanted to share a special technique that I learned about and that I adopted in my own life that changed who I was as a leader, as a friend, as a spouse, and a father. I was able to turn moments of strife and discontent among my family and my team into opportunities where we built trust and we grew together. While serving as a senior NCO in the Army, I realized that I had the tendency at times to drone on and maybe bark orders at my soldiers without really allowing much room for feedback. Once I stopped and listened to them, it was actually kind of interesting to find out that the leadership style that I would take sometimes would actually border on toxic. People felt favoritism among the ranks, and there was a sense of a disgruntled employee, if you will. And I never really knew about this because I didn't foster the environment that encouraged discourse. I dismissed countering opinions and questions as gripes and complaints rather than as opportunities for growth. Once I learned how to transform these instances of confrontations into opportunities, I didn't revolutionize my team overnight. I know that's usually what you hear at these points right now, but it doesn't change it overnight. It actually took time and repetition to establish these roots, to establish trust. But in order to do that, I first had to genuinely seek understanding. And from there, we could grow as a team. And I could develop as a leader, as a husband, and as a father. Taking pieces from the Army's Master Resilience Training Program and other bits from tactical conflict resolution concepts, I actually developed and implemented my own strategy of getting from confrontation to growth. And so what is the strategy that changed my life as a leader and ultimately in all of my significant relationships that I have, to include my marriage? It's a simple 5-step process that really anybody can use to transform themselves from toxic to inspirational. To go from people dreading coming into work to having one of the most innovative and successful teams whose relationships last well beyond the mission, the project, this job, or even this business. This is where we develop relationships that last a lifetime. So let's get right to it, right? What's step 1? Gratitude. Like almost everything we do here, we start from a place of gratitude. Now, if somebody comes up to you and is seeking to have a grievance redressed, the very first thing that you want to do in order to foster the type of environment that actually promotes trust is to reward that action. Thank them sincerely. Thank them for bringing this issue to your attention. This validates them. It doesn't make them feel like they're being blown off or like there's some lesser or lower member of the team. Rather, it empowers their voice. They know that they can be heard and that when they're heard, they might have an impact that on their own environment. Your work that you've created for them, that's their environment too. Now, this may be uncomfortable for you. If you're not used to addressing these things in this manner, there's gonna be stumbling that happens along the way. You're gonna fall down a couple of times, But there are additional tactics that you can take to get yourself better at this strategy even faster. But more on that later. For now, I want you to understand the flow of events here. Right? A person comes to you with an issue. They may be at they may be awful at bringing up issues, and it might come off as being whiny or annoying, and you kind of just want to put your hand on their forehead and just push them away, right? But you're looking for a different result than your normal, right? You're looking to actually build trust and to foster better relationships. So let's try this instead. All right, let's run through a scenario. Billy comes up to you and says, "Hey, it's kind of BS that the other team is doing all the design work over there, and we're doing all the research and analyzing and crunching the numbers. And you respond by saying, hey, Billy, shut the heck up. Get out of here. Go back to work. Maybe this isn't the right approach, right? Like we said, we're looking for a different reality. We're looking for something better. Now, if you want that new and better reality where we're focusing on growth, you might try responding maybe something like this. Oh, thank you so much for bringing this to my attention, Billy. I truly appreciate that you brought this up to me. Boom! That's it, baby. Step 1 down in the books. You know, you're not saying Billy's right or he's wrong. And you're not saying that he's smart or stupid. You're simply being grateful that this communication is happening. Right? You want to encourage this type of behavior. You want to encourage discourse and that confidence that they can come up to you. So what's step 2? Ask for clarity. And this really is as simple as it sounds. It's almost as simple as step 1. If we're seeking to grow, we must first seek to understand, right? You know, let us make sure that we're understanding the problem clearly from the very beginning. Now, if you're completely lost in the sauce here, try to just replicate the question that they asked back at them and see if you got it right. It's kind of like the game of telephone. You know, you may actually be surprised that even in this short one-on-one exchange, that you may have interpreted some of what they said in a way that they didn't actually intend. What seeking clarification does is to help us avoid confrontation that may occur later down the line as a result of not fully understanding each other right now in the beginning. So let's play this. Let's continue to play this out with our good friend Billy. So you say to Billy, so Billy, let me make sure that I understand you. You know, you're frustrated because you don't get to work on the creative side of the house, and you feel like you might be happier or more fulfilled if you were working on creative aspects of the project and not the analytical. Is that right? Now, this actually rolls directly into step 3, which is actively listening. It's almost like a sub-step, like it doesn't feel like we might have to break this down, but I feel like we messed this one up so badly and so consistently that I really needed to give it and dedicate its whole own step to it, just to give the proper emphasis on this step. And so the scenario carries on. Billy says, "Oh no, that's not what I meant. I just mean I think that the team would work better if we didn't break it up like this. You know, I think the analytical team would have great input with the creative team, and the separation is causing problems. You know, they don't seem to be understanding the details of what we're telling them." So you respond by actually going back to step 1, right? This is the part of the key takeaways that I want you guys to have is that, you know, while these are steps and it is kind of a logical, chronological flow to the way that these conversations are typically going to happen. It's what it is it's a framework, right? And you don't want to look at it though, like what you want to make sure that you avoid is that you don't look at this like a checklist. You're like, okay, cool. I was grateful. Don't need to be grateful anymore. All right, cool. I sought clarification. We're clear. Moving on. You're in a conversation, right? And you're going to, as you're seeking to understand and as you're seeking to learn more, you want to make sure that you're staying engaged, that you're staying present with this person or with these people. And the best way to do that, and one of the best ways to demonstrate that this is the case is by going back to the previous steps. And so you can start at step 1 and say, oh, okay, thank you so much for clarifying. Right? Step 1, gratitude. I understand that you feel frustrated that the creative team is not understanding the intent of the information that you're providing. Is that right? And Billy then has the opportunity to respond. And he would say something like, you know, yeah, I think that they're really missing the key points. And you say, okay, great. I get it. I understand what you mean now. They're not understanding what you're trying to convey. Now, this back and forth might go by without so much of as a breeze because you actually correctly understood what they were saying from Jump Street. Or it might take a few more back and forths than we just demonstrated, just to ensure that clarity is actually achieved. Now, you just want to keep working on it until you get there. And you'll see it on their face when you actually hit the point of contention that they're bringing up, because it'll feel like this huge sigh of relief. Like you'll see it escape them. Like they're finally understood by someone that can make change, that can affect the reality. And this is huge. This is very significant. It lets you know, it's like a gut check. So step 4. This might be the most difficult step of the entire process, because you're trying to battle yourself in this. You're trying to keep yourself in check. Right? So what are we talking about? Step 4 is battle the bias. Right? And like I said, this might be the hardest part, because you need to battle these preconceived notions that you have in your mind. Because here and now, this is the place where they really want to stand up and make themselves known. Right? Without diving too deep into psychology and neuroscience and what have you, we're gonna simply say that we all have ideas of the way that we think that the world works. And we typically find information that aligns with those preconceived notions easier to digest, and they require less credibility for us to take it in. And we find new information that counters our preconceived notions. We hold that up to a much higher level of scrutiny. And with this being the case, we must watch ourselves really carefully here. If a person comes up to you and voices an opinion of a problem that, maybe has actually been nagging at you for the past several days, maybe the past several weeks, we want to make sure that we don't fall immediately into the, oh my gosh, thank you. You have been having this. I've been having the same thought. That's incredible. You want to make sure you kind of lean more on the even-keeled approach in an attempt to actually solve the problem. One of the things that can happen here is that people will glob onto the same idea, and once you have that connection, then you're losing perspective. And while you feel like, you're going to develop a plan of action, you're going to pursue it, but you're going to do it with someone that kind of already agrees with you and has your same point of view. And what can happen here is that you actually start confusing activity with productivity, right? It's this mental pitfall. And so if we're going to solve a problem, if we're going to attempt to solve a problem, let's use our energy and focus wisely. And let's get to that real, true root of the problem. And now, without focusing on personalities or feelings or emotions, I want you to clearly lay out the who, what, where, how, and when of the situation. If you can, leave out the why. I mean, literally, write all of these down and avoid the why. And if you need to, write it down and then tear it off and separate it from the rest of it. Put it in a different basket. Sometimes, even though it's not helpful, because the why can be so wrapped up emotionally, we can attach so many feelings to a why and assumptions and opinions. So even though dealing with the why cannot be helpful, allowing the person to clearly express what they believe to be the why may actually be required for them to let go of their emotional stranglehold on this situation. They need you to understand their understanding of the why, which actually might be an indicator that some of their evidence that's coming up is going to be a little bit weak or shaky, but that's a conversation for another time. But now you want to come to an agreement on the solid facts, avoiding the he said, she said, unprovable aspect of things, right? And once you feel that you've removed the emotions and opinions from the issue, then you can move into the final step. But let's continue to play out this scenario. So, Billy states that they have sent data over to the creative team, and time again, they just keep putting the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable, right? They're just not getting it. It's not clicking. And so you seek to clarify. So you ask for the facts, how many times have you sent the data over? And Billy says, twice. Okay, well, we're already getting a little bit more clear, right? Because that's not time and time again, right? You just send it and then you send it again. So you clarify, well, what did you say in the follow-up message? And Billy said, well, I sent them the correct numbers and I said, hey, could you use these numbers instead of the ones you used the first time? Because those ones didn't clearly represent what we were going after. And what was their response? Well, they created another graphic and it didn't represent the data. It didn't elicit the message in the most clear or effective way. And so you respond and say, okay, so you sent them over 2 sets of data and they built new graphics for each set. Is that right? Again, you're seeking clarification. You're keeping them engaged. You're keeping them as kind of like the leader of this conversation almost. Billy responds, yeah, that's exactly it. So you say, well, with the second set of data, you told them not to use the information from the previous one? Yeah, did you make that clear? And Billy says, yes, those numbers were correct, but they just didn't paint the best picture. They took the wrong numbers. They emphasized the wrong parts of it. And you say, then, you've gained understanding. Then you've completed step 4. You've used facts to avoid any sort of bias that might be there. So now step 5 is you really want to seek the solution. You want to work together with Billy, in this case, to develop the solution. You want to work as a team. You want to keep them involved, right? And so now that you guys have an agreement on the facts at hand, you want to ask the person, what their proposed solution be. If this is one way to go. And the crazy thing is, their proposed solution might be the very thing that you already have in your head anyway. But if they feel that they've had a significant hand in the creation of this solution, then they're going to feel even more empowered. And that goal that you have of pursuing growth by understanding, that's complete. And then your next level of evolution of understanding in order to build and foster trust is now well underway, my friend. It takes way more than one instance to ensure that the seed of trust can actually be nurtured and grow into a thriving plant that produces sustenance. But a seed not planted can never grow roots. So the first time matters. Because without roots, all the seeds will die. So take these steps. Ensure the roots have a nice, firm, nutrient-rich soil in which they can thrive. But what if the person brings up an idea that's outlandish, in your opinion, and just simply will not work? How do you handle that? Well, you got to take a step back, ask them to take a step back, and have them focus on what actions they can take. What can they control right now? Let's go back to our scenario. Let's run through this. So, you say to Billy, okay, so the creative team isn't getting the clear message, and you've re-engaged them, 2 times, and each time they're creating products that you and your team don't feel best represent the information that we're trying to relay to the customers. Is that right? So Billy then has the opportunity to re-engage and make sure that what you said was correct. Billy says, yes, exactly. And you have these oh, that's exactly it. Yeah. And you can respond, okay, perfect. So what do you feel could be done to help remedy this? If you were going to develop the solution, what do you think it would be? What do you think one way to accomplish this would be? And I mean, shoot, they might say I don't know. That's why I came to you. I'm out of ideas at this point. I just can't get through to them. And so you can respond and say, you could start helping them to find ways to accomplish this. In this situation, how have you been interacting with them? Has it all been over email? And you find out that, yeah, it was over email. We had a call, but I got cut off by a meeting, and we picked it back up on email. And so, I mean, have you considered re-engaging? These are just, you kind of spitball ideas, and you throw ideas out there and just see how they respond to them. Keep them as a part of it and don't go into dictatorial status, bring up instances of when different strategies have worked for you. I know that for me, I've tried to engage and I've had some miscommunications over email, and sometimes I'm just not, I'm being misinterpreted, I'm getting the wrong tone. And so when I feel like this is happening, especially when I send a second one and the response still, it isn't clicking, I'll stop everything and I'll make that phone call. That's what I do. Do you think that would help? This is something that you could do. how do you think that that would impact? Do you think that that would help solve the problem? Like if you guys were able to communicate over the phone? I know that you had actually said, Billy, that you think that working together. Do you think that there's some sort of collaborative meeting you guys can come together on a recurring basis to go and rehash ideas, or have kind of liaisons between it? Like what do you think would work? And you just kind of spitball these ideas together until you come up with something that kind of clicks, and you're both like, yeah, you know what, that sounds good. And when they walk away, like, You'll see it. There's almost like a pep in their step. Like, yeah, okay, like I can do that. And sometimes it's not always that easy and peachy keen and everything, but you're gonna walk away with a plan, and that's the main thing. Because once you have a plan and they have something that they can execute to try to be a part of solving the problem, then you're fostering that environment, right? We're not necessarily going to solve every single problem the first time through this way. Like, can be a recurring process that comes back, and this kind of is just a tactic or strategy to help nurture things along. And especially when you have the time to implement these strategies, then it really makes the difference when you don't have the time later. Like when you're able to run through this over and over again with members of your team, then you're planting that seed, right? You're watering that seed. You're tending it. You're making sure that nothing's growing up around it, and so that it's getting the proper amount of light. You're pulling the weeds out. Each time you're doing this, you're taking these actions. You're helping promote that growth. You're helping to build that, foster that trust by seeking understanding, and people feel it. Like, oh, like he continuously comes and wants to understand my point of view. Like I really trust him. I trust that he's going to do this, and that he's going to take my thoughts into consideration, and when people have good ideas, let them have good ideas. Let them roll with them, let them figure it out. It's great. And so all of this is great. I feel like you guys you probably have a very good understanding of the concept here. And you may be in a position where you say, well, I want to get good at this faster. I really don't want to deal with the stumbling blocks. I don't want to spend the next 3, 4, 5 months trying to perfect this and kind of running into roadblocks and messing myself up and messing my team up in the process and messing up our productivity while I'm trying to implement this new strategy. And so earlier I promised you that there were going to be tactics that I was going to give you to help you accomplish this faster. Right, to boost up your speed, so that way you're not spending months and months and years trying to develop this new environment of growth through understanding and building trust. Right. So, like I said, now that you understand the strategy and you want to employ it, you want to get as good at it as fast as you can. You want to get those stumbles out of the way. But how do you actually get the stumbles out of the way? Well, the bottom line is, you need reps, right? Repetitions. There's no other way around it. You can watch all the videos. We could talk back and forth all day. You could read all the books, but until you actually practice this in real life, you're going to struggle. You're going to hit those roadblocks. But I said it was going to help you, right? That wasn't really a great helpful hint. Like, yeah, no, get reps in. Good luck. Well, this is the real hint. This is the real helpful hint. Create these scenarios. Control the environment and create scenarios that this will actually happen. Build surveys, send it out to your employees, send it out to your subordinate leadership, and ask them for feedback. Like, actually ask them for feedback on the courses of action that you're taking. And then it helps to engage them in the process, and it lets them know that, hey, you're valuing their opinion. You're already building trust that way. And then when people bring up countering points, do this. Be grateful, right? Seek clarification. Make sure you understand their countering points, in a way that they actually meant it, not in a way that you're interpreting it, where you might be getting a little butt hurt because they're not thinking that you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. Actually work through the process. See, like I said, gratitude, seek clarification, actively listening. Battling your own biases, making sure you're sticking to the facts, and then working together to find the solution. And not every time it's going to be a problem. Like if you're it just might be verifying that they're cool with your solution, right? And maybe there's modifications they would add to the plan that you have. Well, did you ever think about this? Oh, that's actually really interesting. I think that's something that we could absolutely discuss. And boom, and they're like, oh wow, that's great. But then you actually have to discuss it, right? You actually have to have that conversation. If it's not the time and place to do it right then and there, actually sort of like, hey, you know what? Could you send me an invitation to a meeting, so that way we can really book the time. I'd love to get your thoughts on that. And all you have to do is give them like 5 minutes. Like, listen, I don't have that much time, but I'd love to get your thoughts on it. Like, do you think that you could kind of get them boiled down to like 5 minutes? Because I want to know what you think, but we're just so swamped right now. They'd be like, oh my gosh, yeah, I can absolutely do that. You're engaging with them. You're validating their position. You're validating who they are and giving them the voice and empowering that voice in a way that can actually impact the organization. And that's really what everyone wants. They want to feel valued. They want to feel like they're a member and a contributing part of the team. So every day at work, you need to be fostering this environment of growth. You need to be actively seeking this new levels of understanding. And when you're doing that, you're going to be building that trust, which loops us back around. Once we're building that trust, then we're growing. We're inherently, if we're building trust together, we're growing as a team. You're developing as a leader, and that's how this works. I'm so excited for you guys. This is phenomenal. Like I'm pumped that you're here and that you're ready to take your leadership in every part of your life, in your marriage, your leadership in your marriage, your leadership as a parent, your leadership as a sibling, to a new level, let alone, in the workplace. All of this strategy works in every single position because you're showing people that they're valued, and that's really what we care about. That's how we build those relationships, is that you truly and genuinely seek to understand before you seek to be understood. Thank you guys so much. I hope that you've really, really enjoyed this and that you got a lot of value out of it.